Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Delicious. Delicious is a German thriller that tells the story of a typical German family who are vacationing in France for a typical summer getaway. However, their holiday quickly turns upside down when they encounter a mysterious injured woman on the side of the road. The woman, named Theodora, goes back to the vacation residence of the family in an effort for them to figuratively and literally patch things up. It doesn't take long for more strange things to start happening soon after, as Theodora's presence and apparent ulterior motives threaten to drift the family apart. This was easily the most boring thriller I've seen come out of Germany since Black Island. The movie starts off well enough with its idyllic landscape and uneasy tone, but it doesn't take long before it all unravels, on account of its complete lack of tension, brain-dead characters, and beyond obvious symbolism that make it more cringeworthy to watch the longer it goes on. To start, none of the family members are memorable to any degree. Parents John and Esther and their kids Philip and Alba have absolutely no defining character traits other than being a stereotypical nuclear family. I wish I could say more about them, but I can't. They're that dull. They only have the bare minimum of plot threads that pop up in the story, mostly regarding the parents trying to avoid work and yet somehow getting roped back into it, and none of it ever goes anywhere. Their only significant contribution to the plot is anything they do that's connected to Theodora, and let me tell you, this is where the movie gets way out of hand. Theodora is far and away one of the most insufferable supporting characters and antagonists that I've seen in a thriller to date. Everything bad about this movie's story is because of her. It's bad enough that her character is the cliched, mysterious stranger who brings a bad omen with her, but on top of being cliche, she's flat out annoying. A big problem in this regard is that our actress Carla Diaz doesn't deliver a convincing performance in her role as a villain with devious intentions. It's obvious from the beginning that her character has other plans in mind, yet she acts like a young, happy-go-lucky woman, and not like she didn't just get almost run over by a car. As the story progressed, I became more and more confused as to what Theodora was trying to accomplish. I know that's the point of the movie, as it's supposed to build to a gradual reveal, but there's no sense of satisfaction behind understanding her escalating actions, because nothing really escalates until the very end, and when it does, it's even more disorienting. The movie's story simply doesn't work. In fact, I go so far as to say it's dead on arrival, because the inciting incident where the family's car supposedly collides with Theodora is riddled with so many plot holes that it'd give a slice of Swiss cheese a run for its money. How did no one else in the car see her on the road? Why is she barely injured at all from the collision? Why didn't the family immediately take her to the hospital like a normal human being would? I would say these questions go unanswered, but that would imply anyone even asked questions to begin with. That's the biggest problem this movie has. There is so much stupidity between all of the characters, I almost thought it was a comedy, not a serious dramatic thriller like it claims to be. They all have strange priorities and responses, or lack of responses, to everything that happens in this movie. No one behaves like a real human being. These oddities come in all shapes and sizes. They may involve something weird like Alba rubbing her finger in Theodora's accident wound, or as ridiculous as the parents not believing their own children when they accuse Theodora of doing something suspicious. It's the most stupidly dysfunctional writing of a family unit I've ever seen, and none of it makes any sense. The amount of pointless, overblown family drama is compounded by more plot holes that add up over time, random characters are introduced that have no significance to the story, and Theodora's relationship with the family comes way too easy. Everyone treats Theodora like she's a freaking psychiatrist and tells her every life problem they have while trusting everything she says, and are just as quick to turn on each other because of her. The idea of one random girl on the side of a road being able to turn an entire family against each other is laughable. I like the idea of bad things happening to a family who comes into contact with a mysterious stranger, but the movie takes the wrong approach to her character. And again, she's seen right at the beginning plotting her mission against this family. Ignoring the fact she seems to know exactly where they'll end up at what time, there's no mystery behind her actions. Instead of building suspense and making the audience question if she's good or bad, the movie just straight up tells the audience that she has it out for the family, which kills any interest in the plot going forward. And that's if there even was any interest to begin with, which there isn't, because the story moves at a snail's pace throughout its roughly 90-minute runtime. Some of that can be attributed to the story being set in a vacation setting where it is supposed to be relaxing, but to say the movie leans too heavily into this aspect would be an understatement. Everything about this movie is just so dull and boring, and anything remotely resembling a thrill sequence ends up being more confusing than intense. The most exciting thing that happens is when a dead pine marten shows up in the family's house, which Theodora obviously killed, and even then it still falls flat because of the weird line delivery of the characters. I know I've said before that this movie is weird and doesn't make any sense, but it really is a recurring problem that hurts my enjoyment of this movie. The whole point of a mystery is for it to gradually make sense over time before reaching a pivotal aha moment, and this movie doesn't have that. Instead, everyone rambles and waffles their way through their lives like a bunch of zombies. The only time the movie does make sense is when it makes too much sense. Over time, it becomes clear the movie has a real cut and dry approach to attacking capitalism and the whole rich versus poor dynamic. I am glad it has a theme behind it, but the way it explores this theme is obnoxious and only makes the story more unappealing. There's a scene where the family's teenage son Philip has dinner with his family and another family, and he goes into a rant about how bad rich people are and how servers are more respectful people or something to that effect. And it's just embarrassing in its execution. There's no way a teenager would behave like this in real life. This is one of many cases where the writers think they're a lot smarter than they actually are. Punching up against corporate overlords is already low-hanging fruit to begin with, but the fact that it hammers this theme against the audience so much and so blatantly makes it even worse. The only positives I can think to say about this movie is that the production design is top-notch, which is to be expected from a European film. There are also some instances where the cinematography showcases some interesting, almost voyeuristic angles, to give the feeling of something sinister lurking about, although it does get carried away with the amount of tracking shots it has. Despite its weirdness, it's actually remarkable how empty this movie feels. The characters are bland, the story structure is almost non-existent, and everything else in between feels hollow. Even the ending with its supposed shock value falls flat because I saw it coming a mile away. There's too little thought put into the parts that matter, like the story and suspense, and too much put into the parts that don't, like the drama and the whole eat the rich mentality it has. It's hard to care about a movie when there's so little originality and passion to be found in it. Overall, Delicious is an impressively bland and boring thriller, made worse by its confusing presentation of everything from story to characters. If you like really slow thrillers and you want to see a movie stick it to the man in the most painfully obvious way possible, you might be at home with this one. Otherwise, just stay clear, it's really not worth anyone's time. It's unfortunate enough to see a movie take a typical premise like this and not do anything remotely interesting with it, but when you pair it with obnoxious themes, boring story, and bewildering characters, it ends up being far from appetizing. What did you think about this movie? Did you hate it as much as I did, or did you find some redeeming factors to it? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Delicious. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the American horror comedy, The Parenting. Bye bye!